Yeah.
I could totally do that.
Okay, yes, I'm making you a co-host. So if you can figure out how to turn off the waiting.
Yeah.
Okay, so while we're waiting for Ada to arrive, I'll just go quickly over what our agenda looks like.
Oh, it didn't look like it made me a co-host.
Did it or did it not?
Mm-mm.
Yes.
It did?
It did.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, never mind. Just ignore. I am a co-host, never mind.
Okay. Oh, my mom's coming. All right.
There she is. I let her in.
Okay. All right. So we'll just quickly go over the agenda real quick. So normally we would do introductions first. Should I share screen? Maybe.
Hi, Mom.
Hi.
Hi, Mom. Okay, so I'm going to share screen for a second. So normally what we would do is introductions first. But as I said, we have some guest speakers who have sort of time-sensitive schedule conflicts, and so we need to be able to turn over the floor to Ada as soon as she gets here. So we would go through the introductions, and then I would go over PDA chapter business, and then the goal would be to get into the speakers panel and discuss the various women's topics that have come up this week, which are quite a few topics. Normally I would have the speaker session open to everybody can have discussion. But what I've been finding is that this week in particular, there are a lot of men who want to weigh in on these women's topics. It's not, it doesn't quite come across very well. So I would appreciate that if you have questions for the speaker, for any of the speakers, that you would drop them into the chat this time around and let me field them. Because I personally this week have come across various men who are not exactly very sensitive to the issues that are happening with women today. And it's just, I think the meeting will go better if you defer to us and let us kind of field through that. Danette is shaking her head, yes. So I imagine that you agree with me. Okay. So do we have Ada yet? Is she on the call yet?
Yes, I get my picture up there.
I'm here.
You are?
Yes, she's here.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And I'm gonna go to speaker view and I'm gonna give you the floor, Ada.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate you allowing me a few minutes to speak to everyone. It's exciting that you have a woman's discussion today, given everything that we're living. And I couldn't agree with you more. I really think that the last 48 hours have hit women in a very different way. The loss of RBG has been, I think the whole nation has felt it, but women are grieving in a different way. I know that I can't help but, you know, when I found out the news, to feel helpless, to be alone. I wanted to be around, you know, women that I've been organizing with as I was dealing with my grief. And it was impossible to do so in a pandemic, in a very distinct, different, isolating time, and just, you know, compounded pain, you know, around racial injustice, around our, you know, economic hardships, around, you know, whether or not we know if we're going to be here in the next few months. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. It's just a very different time, and it hit us hard. I know I felt it. I see the distinction between how we felt. She was definitely someone that I really looked up to as someone in power in our nation at a time when we have not had leadership, or leadership that I can trust and believe in. She held it all for me. She was hope and inspiration. But I gotta say, even though I feel pain, somehow I feel relief that she's no longer hanging on for you and I. I feel, you know, anger to see the Republicans' response to it. Not that we needed any further division in our country, but, you know, I know one thing for sure. And that is, I know what she would want me to do. I know what she wanted me to do. And that is to make sure that another president, she made it very clear, replace her. She made that very clear to every American in our nation. She told her grandchild, her granddaughter, what she wanted. And I am keeping that front and center. I am making sure. I was already going to work my behind off in this last, 45 days, but I am more driven than ever to expand myself, to push others, and leave nothing to chance to make sure that we are really, really working like she did. She didn't stop, even under a cancer situation, even after she was 87, she lived a very difficult life. She was hardworking. She gave us everything she had. And I feel also grateful. I'm so grateful to be able to understand and know that someone cared so much about our democracy like she did. So I have my marching orders. I'm going to give it all I got, and I'm going to push every single one of you that if you're not touching voters every single day, in multiple hours a day, that you are not doing enough. If it does not hurt, if you are not tired, then you're not thinking about RBG. You're not thinking about every single sacrifice she made and about the future of our country and our democracy. So I'm glad she's resting. She has left something empowering in me, in my soul, and I'm going to keep fighting for her. Last night I had the honor of, because I felt this emptiness inside, and I had this honor of going to the Fullerton courthouse. Many of you may have been at a different event where, candlelight vigil, and I got this little light. And I gotta say, I'm gonna keep looking at this because this is a reflection. I'm gonna reflect on her every time I see this, and I'm gonna ask myself, what more can I do from now till the election and beyond that, frankly. So I'm asking all of you to patch into a campaign if you haven't already done so, to make sure that we're touching voters across Orange County, to make sure that we grab everyone we can to vote for Biden and Harris, and to uplift our candidates up and down the ballot. We have an extremely important opportunity in Orange County to bring like-minded candidates who are putting it all out on the forefront for every single one of us. And we've got to move those candidates forward. So I just want to also take a moment and let you know another big fight that I'm working on along with my colleagues throughout the state with my capacity as a union leader. During this pandemic, you should just know that I help lead a union, Unite Here Local 11. We're hospitality workers, predominantly women of color. And there are things that are of bare necessity as we speak for my membership. And it's keeping alive and keeping safe during this pandemic. We're losing many of our members because they're predominantly women and people of color. We are losing them. They live in small spaces where, the pandemic is hitting us very hard. So keeping alive, keeping a roof over our heads, feeding our children, and maintaining our health care. Those are the necessities that we're dealing with as we speak. And when this pandemic is over, many of you in the call and I will recoup at some point, right? The hardest hit will be the members of my industry. And they're gonna have a very hard time recouping as quick as everyone else does. And so we have been working for the last few months with the State Assembly and the Senate to pass something that's called AB 3216. And what that does is it's worker retention for people in our industry. So whether or not, if you're a hotel worker, we want to make sure that they're covered under AB 3216. It's now at the governor's desk, and we are hearing that he will not sign it, or he's refusing to sign it. So we're in a big quest to push and make sure that he signs this bill that will bring people back whenever the industry is ready to take them back, that they will be rehired. What we've seen in the past is that women that have given, you know, many decades, you know, of their lives to those, you know, large industry, you know, hotels, that they are not recalled back to work, that instead they're replaced with someone who is younger and cheaper than them. And we saw that after 9/11 when our industry took a hit, and we saw that after 2008 when our industry took a hit. This will be no different unless we have a law that protects them. So Jenna, I'm going to send you a text that I'm hoping that you will forward to everyone, because we want each and every single one of you to stand up for women, to send, you know, to sign a petition to get it to the governor, and to make sure that you're calling the governor's office. And not only that you're doing that, but that you're grabbing, you know, your family and friends and your networks to do the same. We've got to send a resounding message to the governor that hotel workers matter, and that we need to uplift them as well, that this pandemic is devastating our industry, and we've got to uplift them. So again, I want to thank you. It's not only women in the hotel industry, it's also janitors, women that work in the night shift in large, big buildings, who are cleaning those, that will also be uplifted and return to work once the industry is back. So I want to thank you all for listening to me, and I want to and I would like to be back and be able to speak to you about other issues in the future. And I want to thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Yada, for joining us. I know your time is incredibly precious, and you are working on some really important things this evening. So I really do appreciate that you were able to jump in with us and join us for these few minutes. Do you need to jump off right away, or do you want to take any questions, or I imagine your time's really precious.
I'll be happy to take a couple of questions or stay on for the next few minutes to hear the rest of the discussion, and I'll jump off when I need to.
Okay, and if you do have that link that you were mentioning, I know you said you could text it to me. However, if you could put it into the group chat, that would actually get out to everybody faster. Okay.
I will do that.
All right. So I don't see any questions in the chat. So what I'll do next is I'm going to go ahead and read the PDA statement on Ruth's passing. I think I still have this up. Let's see. Okay, so the PDA statement is this, and this was written on Friday. Today, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, one of the greatest figures in the history of American jurisprudence, died at age 87. Progressive Democrats of America honors her life and will do everything possible to preserve and extend her legacy. In the coming days, PDA will work with all of its allies to devise a strategy to block any appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court until after the next Congress is seated and the next president inaugurated. Hashtag rest in peace RBG. So that is that's the statement that was put out by PDA on Friday. Okay, so does anybody else want to weigh in right now on the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg? And when I say that, I mostly mean women. So if you're a female, please raise your hand. Not that I'm trying to disregard any of the men in the group, but this is really a female issue right now.
This is Joan Powell. My son and I were out at Lucille's on the patio having dinner, and the breaking news came on my phone, and I was like, Ada, I couldn't talk. I was like, I know she was sick, I know she was really sick and she was trying to hang in there until after the election. And I said, I couldn't, my son said, what's wrong? And I just gave him the phone and he goes, wow. I said, yeah. He said, this has been some year. Well, he's a male, of course. Kobe, her, Congressman John Lewis, he said, wow. I said, yeah, she was a fighter. I said, she has been fighting all her life for the people, you know, all equality, and we're really going to miss her. I mean, it doesn't seem like she will be gone. She's going to come back. But I just say she was a role model for me. My girlfriend who lives in DC, who's an activist, she went over to the Capitol, and you'll probably saw it on the news, thousands of flowers that people have left and signs acknowledging her. And I just said, wow, when she was created, she definitely had a mission that she fulfilled. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you so much, Joan. Yes, I also, I cried on Friday. I'll be real with you. I cried on live stream in front of people. I definitely felt it. I'm not going to totally prevent the men from weighing in on this, but I would like to ask the women first. Are there any other women in the room that want to say something about the passing? Danette, I see your hand up.
Yeah, it was devastating when I heard it. Just a total shock, although I knew that she was getting on in years, and I know she had battled cancer several times before. I thought, you know, ridiculously that she was somehow immortal. Just a weird thought that kind of drifts through your mind. She was such a towering figure that you never think death is going to come for someone like that. So once I got past the initial shock, I just realized this is horrifying. We're in a really, really bad spot right now. And we know absolutely that McConnell has no human decency. He does not care. I actually just told my cousin, he was ranting and raving about the whole thing. I go, you know what? I don't blame your reaction. I actually used to do that all the time, but I'm telling you right now, it's a waste of energy, and we don't have the time or the energy to waste right now. We have to come together like we have never done before, and we need to get the Senate back. We need to stop this madness now, because it's do or die time right now. I don't know how else to explain this to people that aren't getting it. It's time to wake up, because we're in deep shit right now. So beyond the horror of her passing and just the extreme sadness, we have an emergency on our hands. And I don't know what else. If you're not awake by now, I don't know what else to tell you. You know, it's so frustrating trying to get through to people that just don't get it. And it's really, really comforting to be here with people that get it. So thank you for all being here.
Thank you, Danette. Is there anybody else who wanted to weigh in at this point on the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg? You can either raise your hand in the participants. It's a little easier for you to do it that way, because then I can see it. Otherwise, I have to scroll through all the pictures to figure out who's trying to raise their hand. Okay, the fellows, you can weigh in now too if you want to. Okay, well, if I don't have anybody, then I'm going to go ahead and switch into the next subject. I've asked a couple of our women's panel speakers are already here, which is Joan and Isabella, and Ada obviously has to jump off. We are expecting a couple more, and I've asked everybody to jump on by at least 4:30 to get into the women's panel section of the meeting. So in the meantime, we've got about 5 or 6 minutes to just go over regular chapter business. Normally what we would do is introductions. We have a full agenda tonight. So what I'm gonna ask is if you just say your name and your city, because we don't have a lot of time tonight. So just your name, your city, and maybe like one interesting thing about yourself. Really quick though, not like a long, lengthy paragraph. So let's start with Danette, running for Orange City Council.
Hi, thanks for having me. Yes, I'm running for Orange City Council District 3. They just districted the city last year, thanks to our wonderful friend Betty Valencia. Thank you, Betty. I love Betty. She's so fierce. We got to get her in the next couple years too. I'm running on several platform issues. I was actually a liaison about 15 years ago between our complex and a builder who came in after they bought the leased land owned by RJ Noble. I actually acted as a liaison for about 8 months in terms of making sure that any noise and dust was mitigated. I actually negotiated a slump stone wall to be put up between our properties, and also the wall running along Glasell. So we have a very busy street out on Glasell. It leads right to the 91 freeway. So we have a lot of truck traffic that is really noisy and dusty. So it actually cut down a lot on the noise and the dust that we got from the street as well as the construction. So in terms of just being persistent and being there for people in my community, I think that's a really good strength that I have. I was also pretty, I call myself a bulldog sometimes because I don't let go until I get stuff done that I feel needs to be done. There was a huge dip, not really a pothole. It was more like a worn area in the street that, again, trucks would roll over, empty trucks would roll over at night, and it would just send off this huge booming noise throughout the complex. So I kept bugging them, emailing them, calling them, until they finally came out here and fixed it. They actually ripped up that whole section of the street and just redid the whole underpinning and then re-asphalted it. And it works great today. So I'm kind of doggedly determined to get stuff done. And I think I'd be a really good representative for this district.
Thank you so much, Danette. Okay, for the remaining participants, Danette is running for Orange City Council, so I let her go. But if the rest of you could keep it shorter than that, I would much appreciate it. Okay, so Mary Kay Beck, my mom.
Oh, what were the questions I was supposed to be answering?
Your name, your city, and just something interesting about you, but very short, please.
Oh, okay. I'm Mary Kay Beck. I live in Rancho Santa Margarita, and I'm retired.
Thanks, Mom. Okay, let's go to Dr. Sonneburn. I'm trying to unmute you. I can't. You've got to unmute yourself. Let's, while you're trying to unmute, let's go to Dr. Bill.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Bill Huntington. I'm a retired person myself. After 37 years in emergency medicine, I live in unincorporated Orange County, just east of Santa Ana, and which is definitely a challenge. Interesting fact about me is that I grew up in East LA, and my dad was a family medicine doctor there, and I used to go with him on house calls, and I worked in his office every summer, that I was in school. So kind of did the apprentice thing under him, although office practice was a little boring for me, so I ended up in emergency medicine. Little fact. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Bill. Okay, Dr. Sonneburn, you look like you're unmuted.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I live in the city of Orange, not in Danette's district, but working hard for her. I don't know. That's enough. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Sonneburn. Okay, Murtaza. I'm trying to unmute you. I think you guys have to unmute yourselves. Okay, we'll skip that. So for the speakers, it looks like we have all of our speakers on right now. What we're going to do, I'm going to give, I just want to let Dr. Bill pitch our fundraiser, and then we'll go into the panel of speakers and the topics. So Dr. Bill, if you want to take the floor for a second and talk about Change Makes Change.
Oh, sure. Not that I have any a skill set in pitching, but I would say that you know, for those who are maybe new to Progressive Democrats America, we've been around since 2004. We're a national grassroots organization, kind of, you know, lower on most people's radar than, say, Democracy for America, DFA, or Move On, certainly. But we're very dedicated. We have a model to have a chapter in every congressional district in the country. Right now we have 2, thanks to Jenna, who stepped up to start this one in South Orange County. So thank you, Jenna, for that. And we do a lot of on the ground kind of citizen lobbying, where we go to members of Congress like mine and you know, either thank them or spank them, as we say. So we thank them for being on certain bills, or we spank them if they're not. And that's why I put in the chat about Cisneros, Corinne, and Ruta all need to get on board with Medicare for All still. So that's the kind of work we do. And we have a national, you know, crew that works for kind of bare bones, but we have a website and a database and a Zoom meeting room. We just had a nice big Zoom meeting town hall earlier today, had, you know, 100+ people there. So all of that takes a little money, and so we appreciate it. If you can donate, we call it our Change Makes Change program, where, you know, say $5 a month or something like that gives us a budget to operate on. So if you go to our website, pdamerica.org, and click on donate, I'll pop the link in the chat here. We appreciate it if you can help PDA, help us out, keep coming to these meetings and any other PDA meetings that you see in your announcements. We do send out daily messaging emails, so we want you on our email list so you can see what our daily messaging is. It has an ask in it like every other group does too, but it's relatively minor. What we want is the action. We want you to hear the messaging, take the action, and sure, if you can donate, we so appreciate it. So thank you, Jenna.
Thank you, Dr. Bill. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to have, I have the other 4 speakers are all on the call at this point. For the speakers that weren't here at the beginning of the meeting, Ada is not able to participate in this portion of the meeting, but she dropped in and gave us basically a pep talk and talked about a little bit about what's going on with with the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So if I could have each of the 4 of you introduce yourselves, and if you have not already, because two of you were already here, but if you have not already, just give us some of your thoughts on the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg as well. So why don't we go ahead and start with Jane Stoever.
All right, and Jenna, thank you for the invitation today, and it's really beautiful to be with you all and to see you all. I'm a professor at UC Irvine's Law School, where I direct our domestic violence clinic, and we do a really wide range of advocacy, a lot of work in terms of family court and civil restraining orders. Over half our clients are represented in immigration cases, and then we're always looking for policy advocacy kind of avenues to pursue based on all the injustices that we see on the ground, and prevention education being so important too. So that's a lot of my work is there directing the domestic violence clinic, and also the initiative to end family violence, where we put on a lot of programming with really critical perspectives. And really, this is a time where we can think so critically about the traditional carceral response to domestic violence. So we've already been hosting a few, and would invite everybody. It's all free on Zoom, and fabulous to just be able to tune into those kinds of things. I've gotten to know many of you just through community work here in Orange County, and then also through my husband, Dave Min, his campaign for a state senate. So we are working hard on those fronts also, as we also have our 3 kids And if we're on this meeting for an hour, you will probably see at least 2 out of 3. This is part of what it is now, working from home and living from work, etc. But I so appreciate everybody here. Okay, so I gave a longer introduction than I ever expected, but to be able to reflect a little bit about RBG, wow. I mean, so I know we're all mourning, we're all grieving, and we're also in awe of just how fearless, utterly fearless she was of what she did, with her being a legal pioneer. And so determined to do the hard work to be really thoughtful about how to make just this bulletproof legal doctrine. And when we think about all the debt that we owe to her, I have been wildly fortunate to actually meet all 4 of the female Supreme Court justices. And back in 2005, I was a Women's Law and Public Policy Fellow in DC and got to have tea with Justices Ginsburg and O'Connor. So that was a really special, a really special experience that has really stayed with me, of course. And some of the guidance that Justice Ginsburg gave, I posted this to Facebook. Quickly after the news on Friday, I posted, I dissent from 2020, which was kind of my gut reaction, and then posted more reflections about sharing some of the guidance that she gave about the fact that, like, as a lawyer, and it's the same, I'm thinking about Dr. Bill, you're saying, like, as a doctor, you have certain skills. And so you have this kind of tool bag of skills, but if you want to be a real professional, do something outside of yourself and look for the need in your community and look to make life better for others. And that's a meaningful life. It's not just living for yourself, but for others. So important things to come back to. I've also thought so much about how she just persisted against his unfathomable odds. There was nothing predetermined in terms of like this long family line, anything like predetermined about the remarkable career she had. She just worked tirelessly and carefully and was brilliant and determined to fight for all of us. And so I think that means that we have to be determined to carry that legacy on. And I've seen so many people posting about, may her memory be a blessing and may her memory be a revolution, and reading more about really what that means in that turn of phrase. And it's not just a beautiful phrasing, but also it gets to the idea of how remembrance has to be active. This isn't just we're grieving passively, but this should be an active state of remembering those we love and respect and really motivating us to do something. And this group, PDA, I mean, you guys are all about that action, as Jenna and Dr. Bill were just reminding us of. It's about the action that we take every day. And I think we can each look for ways in our lives to make carry on RBG's, sorry, tongue-tied, on her legacy. Yeah, thanks, Jenna.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Guerline, would you like to go next?
Yes, please. Can you repeat the questions for me, or is it just introduction?
It's an introduction and just your thoughts on the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes, thank you so much. It's so great to see so many amazing people on the call, and I see my sister Jane, and I also saw Ada there earlier. So it's always such a blessing to be with those amazingly and powerful women. My name is Guerline Jozef. I live in Aliso Viejo. Been here for 15 years now. Grew up in New York, but I was born in Haiti in the Caribbean. As a Black immigrant, a Black woman immigrant in the heart of Orange County, I don't even have to tell you the experiences that I have had being here for 15 years and see the changes. And as we reflect on the passing of this icon, who is also a daughter of immigrants and whose lives was dedicated to justice and love and really fighting, all of her 5'1" frame, power exuding from all of it. So for me, Jane, you meeting her was my dream. You know, I always wanted to say, give her one more day, so hopefully I can get to meet her, because of who she represents to me and to the world. And one thing that I always, you know, carry with me from her is the fact that she proves that one person can make changes for humanity. If each one of us is able to look into ourselves and understand that our calling is to serve, our calling is to protect, our calling is to make sure that justice prevails, we can make a difference. Each one of us by ourselves and all of us combined can make sure that her legacy continues, that justice prevails, and that we leave the world better than we found it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Isabella, would you like to introduce yourself and speak on the subject?
Hi, I'm Isabella Rubio, and I started off as a volunteer and later on dubbed a super volunteer, and I did that with campaigns for a few years. But recently, I got myself into more campaign work, and instead of doing the activism as much, because I've been trying to put my energy towards you know, being focused, and it paid off with Gil Cisneros getting elected. And I feel like it's important to just not extend yourself so much, and I used to do that. So it's I've just started as an activist, and I still think of myself as a volunteer, but definitely your voice is very important in the party. And I, like my friend Stephanie says, and a lot of people say, if you don't have a seat at the table, you're what's for dinner. So I definitely have to make my voice heard now, and you know, sometimes it's also important to just step aside if it's not your fight, because you know, you could hurt the, you know, if you're not invested, you know, why commit? So I've learned a lot just being an activist and a volunteer. And also with the passing, it was just really sad. I was speechless. I was working with calls for Newman, and I was like, couldn't talk for a few minutes. My throat hurt. It was just, it hurt really bad. It was like you felt it in your chest, and you just couldn't stop crying. Well, for me, it was just, it's really sad. And for women, I feel like it hurts them a little more. And I feel like it's not just about the right to choose. It goes beyond that. And I just want people to understand that it's way more than that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, and then Joan.
Thanks again, Jenna, for allowing me to come and use my voice. I'm Joan Powell. Was appointed by Scott Reinhardt, vote for Scott, in the 73rd. He's running for the Assembly District, so shout out for Scott. I've been an advocate since I was a little girl. I won't go into detail. And right now, I'm, as I said, working with Scott on his campaign. I'm also president of National Council of Negro Women of Orange County. I just got off a Zoom meeting with them and told them I was coming on here and had to leave early. But I've always been an advocate for women, minorities, children, and sometimes I was listening to Isabella. Sometimes you just overextend yourself, but I'm just so, I can't stop. I just can't stop. I'm also an advocate for healthcare rights. I've been to DC on several occasions speaking on healthcare rights. But I did want to give you a quote moving along. One of her quotes from Supreme Justice Justice Ruth Bader This was her quote that she said she wanted to be finally remembered on. This was her quote. She said, "Someone who used whatever talent she had to do her work to the very best of her ability and to help repair tears in our society, to make things a little better through the use of whatever ability she has." And that's what she wanted to be remembered on. She has a lot of quotes, so I'm sure you'll be reading them through the next week or so. But she was like a she hero, you know what I mean? They don't make it like that anymore. But I'm determined to fight on, as she would tell everybody, just continue to fight, women's rights, women's rights, women's rights. So that's what I wanted to share with you, and thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you so much. Okay, so for my guest speakers, here's how we're going to roll. We have 4 other topics. I'm going to give each topic roughly, I guess we could fit in about 10 minutes per topic, depending how it goes. And I would encourage you to just manage it as though you're just having a conversation in your living room with each other. So that I'm not micromanaging the conversation. I don't want to have to like call on you and like manage it, but the 4 of you are the centerpiece, and I will just at each 10 minutes say, okay, this is the topic we're moving on to. So the first topic, let me go back to my PowerPoint, hold up. The first topic is we had a couple of different articles that came out this week about how women are getting hysterectomies against their will in ICE custody in a facility in Georgia. And I know that there's at least a couple of you that have been advocating for immigration rights. And so I want to give you the floor and talk to us about like, what are the, what do you know about this? What is happening? How are women being treated in detention centers? And what can we as activists do to help protect these women because they're in such a terrible situation right now? And I think, Guerline, this is really your area, right? Do you want to kick this off? I think she's muted. She might just step aside. Does anybody want to jump? Jane, do you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. And I think what we've seen in so many ways, 2020 feels like a reckoning for our country. And I wish I would have been able to get here to hear Ada's remarks. I'm sure she addressed, the thought of appointing a new justice with Virginia already early voting. So I'm assuming that topic may have already been covered, but I think about this too in terms of it's one horrendous kind of a thing after another that still it's important to still be shocked by these things, right? And to not lose that. And so when I am reading about the ICE hysterectomy allegations, these are horrifying. These are also in line with the US's long history of racism and eugenics. And we think about there being the US Supreme Court case, 1927 of Buck versus Bell, saying that forced sterilizations actually endorsing this, and having federally funded eugenics boards being established in 32 states, through which about 70,000 people, mostly women, were sterilized. And this, of course, disproportionately targeting Black women. And so what, when I see this in the news, it's horrifying. Everything about ICE detention is of concern. And certainly the health aspects of what's happening. And it's consistent with our nation's denial of women's autonomy and bodily autonomy over time, whether it's women being considered their father's property and then husbands, violence against women, the area in which I research and advocate most, seeing how husbands had a right of chastisement, and as long as a husband didn't kill or maim his wife, he couldn't be prosecuted. So that's the history of the law that we're coming from in the US, and it not being until 1993 that there were even laws against domestic violence in each state. And thinking about just gender equality issues, the broader theme for today's panel, Married Women's Property Acts, in terms of all that history of what women couldn't do, that was in part motivated for white women to be able to own slaves. And so really thinking critically about where the different advancements occur and how racialized those have also been in our nation. It's alarming in terms of what's happening in terms of women's bodily autonomy and in these situations of captivity.
This is Joan. You know, when I heard it on the news, I wasn't stunned or shocked because this has been our African American or Black women's history over the years. And I was like, oh, it's getting some publicity now than it used to be, and maybe this will open up doors for women of all backgrounds to look at the situation. But I'm telling you, with the loss of our Chief Justice, and I don't know who is going to get appointed, hopefully after the Biden gets elected, that things will change. But when you have men dominating the field, sometimes you feel hopeless. What can you do, especially when it comes to the prison system? I mean, most of the wardens are men. The women are helpless in those situations. And a lot of times you're not even aware of the situation until after it happens. So I'm kind of at a loss when it comes, as I said, this has been going on for years. As she said, slavery, and I'm sure it's going on throughout the world, where we as women were always being degraded, and just makes you angry. And you want to do something, but you don't even know what to do about it. Who do you write to? Who do you talk to? So I really don't know how to respond to this. This is a very difficult topic. And I guess you just have to keep marching on, and for that movement too, just to be added to another list of things that are going on in the world.
Thank you. Yeah, I personally feel helpless. I mean, I'm sure the other women in the room feel this way too, is that we just keep getting attacked over and over again. And when you have men out there demonizing women just for wanting to have reproductive health, for wanting to be able to have the choice as to whether or not we have a baby, or to wanting to even just have the ability to have an abortion if I have some sort of medical crisis where it could put my health in danger, or if I just want the choice and I'm not ready in my life right now to have one. The fact that we keep having men tell us what we have to do and actually physically taking away our bodily parts is shocking to me. I don't even know what to say. I don't know if Guerline, did you jump off the call? Did you want to weigh in on this one? Or even any of the other women in the room want to jump in on this one?
Yes, I am here. And we are speaking about what's happening in those detention centers, correct?
Yes, yeah, the hysterectomies.
Yes. This, as you know, Jenna, this is a subject that is very close to my heart. Actually, one of the first women who reported having the hysterectomy back in December 25th of last year is one of our community members, a client who was in detention and unfortunately got deported 2 weeks ago. She was one of the first people who reported it, understanding that as a Black immigrant woman, an asylum seeker who came to the border and asked for asylum, instead of caring for her, we ended up putting her in prison, had that surgery. Of course, we do not believe the report, the medical report that they had sent to the attorney. And when we reached out to members of Congress and Senate, they wanted to take a look at her case, but ICE delayed access for her to even sign the waiver, allowing Congress members to inquire about her case, and they will tell us every time we reach out that their system is down. However, 2 weeks after that, they were able to put her on a plane and deport her without even giving her a chance. So this is nothing new, as the previous, I don't remember who, Miss Powell was telling us before. This is nothing new for us as Black people in this country. We do understand from the beginning of time, women, especially Black women, have been used as guinea pigs for the medical community, where doctors saying that Black women can take the pain, whatever type of medical equipment that were being that they were trying, were being tried on the bodies of Black women. So for us, this is nothing new. However, we are seeing people looking at what's happening. We are seeing people voicing concerns of what's happening. And our goal really is to find justice for those women, to find justice for Judith, who was deported even, after having that happen to her. She does not have justice. We want to make sure that these people have justice. We want to make sure that the whistleblower, who also is a Black woman, the nurse, is protected. This is very dear to our heart. And I am really hoping that here in Orange County, we will have a campaign to demand justice for those women, to see what's happening, that's been happening. And I'm just in a way happy, because of a lack of a better word, really, because that's nothing to be happy about. But in a way, seeing that people are looking at this and we are seeing the injustice and come together to say enough is enough.
Absolutely.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so ICE is just a new face of sterilization in America, but it's like Professor was saying, and our two ladies, Joan and Julianne, were saying that just there was massive campaigns against the Native Americans, and in California, we were responsible for like 20,000 of those from the early 1900s to the 70s. So it's just, we need to organize and we need to protect women at all costs. And I think that's just what we need to do. It's just protect all women, because especially all minors too, they're being, the campaign that they had back in the day was against just to curb the population of people of color. And that's what ICE is doing now too. And it's just sad. It's just sad that we're doing this to women to curb the population.
Thank you, Isabella. Danette, did you want to weigh in? Because I see you dropped a comment.
Yeah, it's it's just an assault on women's health in general, and like you mentioned, Jenna, dominion over our bodies that are supposed to be sacred spaces. This is our decision. It's going to affect a lot more than our choice to either get an abortion or not. It's going to extend far greater restrictions on birth control. Women don't use birth control strictly for birth control. It's used for other physical ailments, such as really difficult PMS, endometriosis, several other issues. And I still can't wrap my head around it. I've been on this earth for almost 57 years and I still can't wrap my head around, even when I was a kid, like, why should a man have decision power over what a woman does with her body? It just has always floored me beyond anything. And I think it stems from fear fear of women. We are powerful. And I think that a lot of men are just afraid of that power for whatever reason. I don't know, but it just seems like we never get a break. We always have to keep fighting the same bullshit over and over and over again. Sorry, I'm just, my favorite words lately are the F word and bullshit, because pretty much it covers everything. So yeah, it's like, this shit again, you know, like, didn't we already resolve this? Apparently not. So there we are. And yeah, just, you can never let your guard down. I look forward to the day when these old white men, you know, I've had a gut full of them. I'm just done. And that includes, unfortunately, some of my relatives. So who are still supporting Trump for whatever reason, because they're insane. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, just frustration and determination, you know, they go hand in hand. So keep fighting, my ladies.
Thank you, Danette. And I'm right there with you. And I think everybody who knows me knows that I drop a bunch of F-bombs like every single day on my various live streams. So I'm right there with you. But just as a reminder, in case it matters to you, we are live broadcasting to Facebook. Not that it doesn't really matter to me. We are not necessarily a G-rated page or anything.
I am what I am. Take it or leave it.
Okay, so I am gonna move to the next topic, but I do want to encourage you that if you have more thoughts on this, the third topic in, I believe, is going to be the attack on women's reproductive rights and what they've been doing at the state level, and the fact that they want her, they want that justice seat so badly because they want to overturn Roe v. Wade. So we will come back to that, but I would like to switch the subject now because we actually did go, I think, 15 minutes on this one. So let's move to the next one, which is kind of a hard one, I think, for the progressive community, because the progressive community has largely focused on kitchen table economics, right? That's been our big thing, is like trying to figure out how we connect everybody together by not identifying specific things, but there are specific things that do need to actually be identified. And those things have fallen into this category called identity politics, right? Identity politics. And this is how this labeling, and Dr. Bill, I think, and Danette, you were both on the PDA fundraiser call yesterday when we were listening to, was it Daniel Ellsberg that was talking about, or who was it that, no, was it Friday? It was Friday. Somebody was talking about the labeling, the labeling that they've been using, and how they keep taking all these terms and flipping them on us. Like political correctness is now, like, you say political correctness and they're like, oh, you can't be politically correct. Liberalism, populism, and in this case, it's identity politics. It's identity politics. That if you advocate something for a specific demographic, then you are engaging in identity politics. You're not engaging in something that applies to everybody, like kitchen table economics. So there's been a lot of progressives who have fallen prey to this and are like, don't talk about identity politics. But the reality is that we have specific issues because there are specific people who get attacked. So the next subject is trans exclusionary radical feminism. And I'm gonna let Isabella, I hope you're ready for this, because I wanna kick it off with you and I want you to tell us your thoughts on this particular subject.
So, trans exclusionary radical feminists are folks that come to mind are J.K. Rowling, and she has villainized in her new book a trans woman, and she just said it's a guy that's it's not even a trans woman, it's actually a guy that dresses up in a woman's outfit and is a serial killer. I don't know any more beyond that, but it's just, it's demonizing a community. It's making them also be seen as men and not as their, what they feel, who they are. And some folks are gender nonconforming. I believe I am too, because I don't want to compete with a man or a woman. I like to think of myself as just trans and Isabella, but I'm a little feminine. I can't help it. But like my friend Stephanie, she's got traits that are a little more like, she likes to surf, she likes to do the boy stuff, and she still likes to be a little feminine, but we're all different, and it's just it's hard knowing someone that's trans because there's not so many out there. So it's so easy to demonize someone that you don't know. But I think the one way that people like me can help folks is by just being out in the community. And I think just giving a human face to that sector of people. And I think that's important. And also just knowing that it's just a small minority of true feminists that are like that are not. It's a big minority that are with us, but it's a small minority of feminists that are not with the trans community. Because if you're a true feminist, you would understand that those issues are going to be your issues too. And if you are fighting for something so radical as that, as fighting for a trans woman, you're opening doors for so many other sectors. And that's what I would like to just advise the exclusionaries, that, you could build bigger and better if you join with us.
Thank you. And I want to add to that as well, is that from what I'll be real with you, Isabella, like this entire topic has been something that I have been learning about over the last few years. And my son has helped educated me on understanding the gender spectrum and non-binary issues. And the fact that just because you're born with certain physical attributes doesn't mean that that's how that your brain works or that your body works or anything else. And I've met people in my life too now that are non-binary or have transitioned or whatnot. And so for me personally, it's been a learning experience. But yeah, what I've come across is that there are still a lot of people out there who really do demonize this and are so unwilling to accept that this is a possibility. Even the fact that we've known, I've known my entire life that there are people who are born with attributes of both sexes, that it does happen. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something physical that you can see. It can be something that is obviously that we can't see. And the whole bathroom debate, the whole, I don't understand how we're this far along. We're in 2020 now and we don't have just gender neutral bathrooms everywhere. I used to go to a club in Laguna Canyon called Club Post Nuclear. We had gender neutral bathrooms in the early 90s at Club Post Nuclear. I don't understand why we aren't there yet. But if Jane, if you're still available, I think, did you mention that this was one of your areas of expertise? Is this something that you can weigh in on for us?
This is not my area of scholarship, but I do care deeply. And so if I can just offer just a few thoughts here. I mean, this kind of specific form of transphobia and more specifically of trans misogyny, it seems. And it feels so far away from feminism. So I really just want to appreciate everything that Isabella offered. And this ideology of trans exclusionary radical feminism. I mean, this just seems problematic, hurtful, and dangerous in terms of inciting violence. And we see the ways in which our president has used different rhetoric, very hateful, harmful rhetoric, to incite violence against different vulnerable groups. And this is hugely problematic. And we also know that transgender women and transgender people experience higher rates of sexual violence, harassment, and assault. And so I think of my friends who are transgender women who talk about how dangerous and how scary it can be to date. And so just I mentioned that for people to understand and appreciate this more. So it's in our clinic we do represent all people. And so in terms of in terms of thinking about gender-based violence and sexual violence, yes. And it just fundamentally being so important that our schools, workplaces, our movements, our political movements also be inclusive, safe places. And just this idea of intersectionality, Jenny, you started us off with thinking about like identity politics, but recognizing how important it is just to recognize that we don't all experience gender depression in the same way, and that our identities do influence this, and we have diverse experiences of gender as it intersects with race, class, sexuality, disability status, and a lot of structural factors. And so to just appreciate this as we're then thinking about what policies and what do we take on as a movement. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
This is Joan. You know, when you were talking, Isabella, I'm thinking about myself as a Black woman or a Black person. They tend to put us all into one box. And I'm sure they do the same with the transgender population. You know, all the stereotypes, all the whatever you all have probably heard. But everybody's different. And that's why we try to say in the Black community that we're all different. As I said, the Trump factor, I call them. Even with the military, there were people in the military that wanted to have, you know, medical procedures. And I don't know where the status is. Is it still being denied? But yet they can go fight in another country and the medical medical billing they won't pay for, even though it's, you know, the government. So I feel your pain. I know it's a different pain than I have as a Black woman, but I can only imagine what yourself and some of your other friends have gone through. And we're talking about it, which is good. It's coming to the forefront. The community is, you know, you guys have always been into movements. And I know this is just another step that you're going to take. But I applaud you for speaking out and sharing with the group today some of the things that you've experienced. So as I said, I applaud you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I would like to echo that, Isabella. We partner with the Transgender Law Center that is headquartered in Texas, and our sister organization, the Black LGBTQ AI+ Migrant Project. And we work specifically with with our transgender brothers and sisters and non-conforming community members to make sure that protection is here, to make sure that we continue the fight. Right before COVID-19, I went to testify in Congress as part of the community to share what I have witnessed, the abuse, all the violence that is being perpetrated to our transgender community members. So please know that we are here for you. As we were talking about kitchen politics versus identity politics, the reality is there's space for both. We need to be able to have specific issues dealt with specific groups of people and be able to bring all of our issues to the table to take care of that. So in order for the transgender community to get protection, we all have to make sure that we fight for that protection. However, we do not all have the experiences of the transgender women. And that goes to each and every community, even as a Mother Powell, if you allow me to call you that, was talking, myself as a Black woman, I'm an immigrant woman, descendant of slaves. However, my ancestors were dropped to a different island, right? So my experience as a Haitian American woman is different than Mother Powell's experience. However, when we are looking into Black issues, we have to come together. When we are looking at women issues, we have to come together. When we are looking at injustices and bias and xenophobia and all of that, it takes every one of us to come together.
Thank you. Are there any last thoughts on this particular topic before we move to the next topic? Okay, so I'll just conclude by saying this. I think that probably the most horrible thing behind what happens here with trans exclusionary radical feminism, there's a couple of things. First of all, the people who do this have been affectionately been called TERFs, because that is the acronym for trans exclusionary radical feminism. And they have tried to equate the term TERF to using the N-word, which is absolutely ridiculous. I've seen progressives do this. I've seen people do this. Even J.K. Rowling was doing this sort of stuff on Twitter. And I think, Isabella, you know, I've been particularly hard against J.K. Rowling in the last few weeks, because I just cannot get over how ridiculous she is right now and how disgusting. And it's kind of ruining a lot for me, because I read those books to my son. You know, I was a hardcore Harry Potter fan. I read those books to my son, and now I'm like reevaluating everything I read and realizing all of the misogyny and abuse. I mean, she put Hermione in an abusive relationship with Ron, and I'm just like looking back on all of this now, rethinking everything I thought about her. And you know, we go through epiphanies. We realize we were wrong, right? We were, at some point we realized, wow, that just was not, that was not the way we should have been doing things at all. And, but these TERFs is what they're being called, and they're equating it to the N-word. They're legit equating this to the N-word, which is ridiculous. Because it's just an acronym for what they actually are. They're okay, but anyway, they are using the argument of biology that people who have transformed were not born with the parts, right? But why would that even matter? There's so many women who can't even have babies for their own reasons. It just doesn't even matter. But people are really just too obsessed with what's underneath our clothing. I think that's where we are right now, is that people are just way too obsessed with what's under our clothing and what's happening in our bedrooms. So that's my personal opinion. That's where I'm going to conclude this. And if anybody else wants to weigh in before I move to the next topic.
I just want to say hallelujah. Ever since the Puritans came and settled this country, we've always had an issue with sex and sexual things. Like, I don't know what it is. It must be woven into the fabric of America or something, but we've always had this, like, we'd rather see a movie with people getting blown away with semi-automatic weapons and see two people making love. It's crazy. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. Ridiculous.
Totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move us into the next topic, which is the attack against Roe v. Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood. So there's 2 big pieces of legislation. I am no expert in this, and I'm sure there are experts on the call who can like go way deeper into this than me. But the 2 biggest pieces of legislation were Roe v. Wade and then Casey versus Planned Parenthood. And Roe v. Wade established that that women could legally have abortions. Planned Parenthood versus Casey established that you could have those abortions so long as your fetus was not considered a sentient being. And the experts on the call can totally correct me if I'm wrong on that one, but that is my understanding of the law, is that the fetus has to be capable of surviving on its own outside of the womb in order for it to be considered a sentient being, at which point it wouldn't be an abortion, it would actually just be a premature birth. So there is no such thing. And this is something that Trump brought up in the debates when he was debating Hillary. And I was exceptionally disappointed that she did not correct him when she was debating him. He was on the floor telling her that people were aborting babies at 9 months through the pregnancy, and that's just simply not possible. You are not, there is no such thing as a 9-month abortion. You are either removing a dead fetus that cannot survive outside of the womb, or you are having a premature birth. So I'm going to open up the floor to the discussion on Roe v. Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood. Jane, please kick us off. I know you know stuff about this.
No, but anybody else jump in as we're talking. And so Jenna, when you emailed us or you messaged us with just the notion this is going to be one of the topics, just the attack on reproductive rights, I'm thinking about my generation and all the students that I teach. We've grown up with access to contraceptives and safe legal abortion. And so thinking about our lived history and the context that we're in, how many decades we are now in to establish legal precedent. And that brings us all the more alarm, seeing the attack on gender equality and reproductive health care that's happening across the nation. And so statistically, like pulling together some of the recent stats in 2019, so in that year, over 300 bills restricting abortion care were filed in 47 states. And among those bills, 135 banned abortion in all or some circumstances. So you'll remember our gatherings when we could gather in person, speaking out against these issues and just seeing this new wave now of abortion bans and restrictions that really dismiss women and transgender individuals as autonomous and capable decision makers. Bringing us back to where we started our conversations this evening. They impose such severe burdens that turn back time, and they're dangerous. Because we know that ending access to safe legal abortion does not end abortion. And so thinking about also in terms of the work that I do on gender-based violence, how the abortion bans fail to recognize those dynamics of intimate partner violence, sexual assault, and reproductive coercion and control. And I see us replacing an abusive partner's control with state control. And so we've got well-established legal precedent with the right to abortion, going back to Eisenstadt versus Baird in 1972, a case about contraceptives being provided to unmarried individuals, and then Roe versus Wade in 73, recognizing a woman's right to safe legal abortion under the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause and establishing that fundamental right to privacy, protecting choice about whether or not to terminate a pregnancy. And then 2 decades later, in 1992, with Planned Parenthood of Southeastern Pennsylvania versus Casey, saying, as Jenna was referencing, the states can regulate abortion at any point from fetal viability on, and before that point, to not impose an undue burden. And so Casey did lower our standard from what we had in Roe, but looking to evaluate whether or not any of the state restrictions are undue burdens. And pulling us forward, I'm not going to go through every single case, I promise. But Whole Women's Health versus Hellerstedt in 2016, where we were evaluating then the Texas trap laws, and the court struck those down, right? And so under the doctrine of stare decisis, our courts are supposed to be following precedent. And what we saw this summer with the case of June Medical Services versus Russo being decided on a thread, right? And so being decided because what was at issue in June Medical Services was identical to the provisions that were just decided in 2016 in Whole Women's Health versus Hellerstedt. So we're not supposed to bring the same issues back before the court unless the law is radically not working for folks. There have been significant societal changes. There are standards for this. And also the people haven't relied on that law. And actually we have generations of people relying on these laws and it being so well established. What's of concern, of course, is our current courts and the composition, and that Roberts was in the dissent in Whole Women's Health versus Hellerstedt. He was then brought us to the majority in June Medical Services, but was very clear that he was only voting with it because it was such, I mean, because they had just decided this case for the identical case 4 years prior. And so for the legitimacy of the court was going with precedent, but really seemed to invite anything different. And so if the laws if the restrictions are different than what the court has explicitly ruled on, I think he's quite welcoming of that. And it's of deep concern in terms of what we're hearing about how fast plans are to bring another justice through.
Thank you. Who else wants to weigh in on this one?
This is Joan. Mine, just a brief comment, might be kind of funny. Let's say for those women that want to have abortions and the court says, no, you can't have abortions, why don't you sterilize the man? You know what I mean? This Roe v. Wade thing, I mean, I think it's, what is it, state by state, they have different cases they submit to the Supreme Court eventually. But I grew up with saying to myself, even as a child, this is my body. You can't tell me what I can do with my body. It's my decision. And I guess what gets to me, I guess, I call myself a Christian, okay? And what you call the evangelicals, they're always talking about how abortion is so unfair and all this and this kind of stuff. Well, I'm sure if you took some statistics in some of the households, you will probably find that there were members in that community that also did it. And as I said, in years past, being that Roe v. Wade wasn't passed, there were a lot of women that died having these abortions. I forget what they used to call them. These women, they would do an abortion for you, give them a couple bucks. My issue would be, what would be the statistics among those that had abortions years past and compared to those that have abortions now, legally and unlegally? But as I said before, this is my body. You can't tell me what to do. I don't know what the younger generation is saying. I'm in my 60s, so I don't know if some of you all have younger children or grandchildren. What are they saying regarding Roe versus Wade?
I don't have much to add really, but that's one thing that Ms. Powell mentioned. If it was the other way around, all of that will have been taken care of. Just put the same sanctions on men and see what happens. That's all I would like to add, because all of those talks, all of those, decisions being taken, all of that will be very quickly disappear. So that I think you were absolutely correct, Mrs. Powell.
I wholly agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. And I've tried to fathom that my entire life. Like, why isn't there male birth control? Why is this 100% our responsibility of managing this? But and yet
they were actually working on a male birth control pill.
And yeah,
back in the 80s, I think, or 90s.
They fund, drugs to make sure that men don't have to suffer impotence. But
yeah.
Okay.
And is it right that it was some of the side effects? They're like, oh no, we can't have that.
Yeah. Oh, I can't bloat.
I mentioned, as we're talking, we are rightly so focused on just preserving legal rights, but also the importance of thinking about access too, and how many parts of our country are now really reproductive deserts. And then the issues of being in, linking these issues together in terms of the idea of being in immigration detention and what kind of access do you have? It was Kavanaugh who was trying to prevent a teenage girl from having access to reproductive services when he was on the DC circuit right before being appointed to the court. So it's a little discouraging, but it's also really important for us to be really real about both the need to protect the law and to insist on access.
And also too, I don't know, if they think it's going to stop abortions, totally it won't. It'll only stop safe abortions, which is a huge, huge thing to remember. Women are not going to stop getting abortions. If you're desperate enough, you will find a way. And usually that way is not safe. A lot of women die from septic shock, which is a total systemic infection that goes into your bloodstream. And once that gets in there, it's usually not good news. So, you know, I just don't get the thinking. It's so backwards. It's so, I did have another point and I can't remember what it was, but it'll come back to me. But yeah, it's ridiculous. And yeah, I have no words anymore.
You know, I think it was a couple of years ago that I think it was the United Nations or one of those international bodies came out with something saying that access to safe abortions is a human right. It's a human right because this is actual legitimate medical care that we need to have access to. But also, I don't know if it was Jane or one of the other speakers who mentioned the religious backgrounds of this. I don't know if you guys remember this, but when they started doing all these state laws over the last year or so, or 2 years, there was a run on like Plan B. Like people were stocking up because people are scared that they're going to lose their ability to have safe abortion access. And even Plan B is considered an abortion, even though it's basically like the same thing as Depo-Provera. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's basically the same thing as Depo-Provera. And my former, I'm not going to drop names, but my former employer wouldn't cover Depo. They would refuse to cover Depo because this ties into a whole other political subject of corporations being considered persons and that they can make decisions like that of what they will deny you within their health plans. So I could not personally take regular birth control because it did terrible things to my skin. So the only thing that I could take that wouldn't really mess with my skin and my hormones and everything else was Depo. And it wasn't covered. It's not covered under my plan for that reason, because they consider it like an abortion type of chemical, that it makes you release the egg. The egg, for God's sakes. Okay, does anybody else want to weigh in on this?
I'm gonna say, release the egg.
Right? It's just the egg, for goodness sake.
And then also too, they never think about pregnancy is a very high risk condition. A lot of women I had a friend who had life-threatening preeclampsia. She almost died. She was so swollen, and I was really afraid for her. She had started having major blood pressure issues, just sky high. I mean, she could have died. So, you know, they're not looking at the sanctity of life. It's a control issue, 100%.
I can share, I myself went through that. My Victoria was born at 2 pounds. I had preeclampsia and I was literally out for 3 days. I didn't know anything. So I don't think people really, as you mentioned, understand all the different things that can happen and actually happens to people. I am a testimony of that. You know, my Victoria is 10-year-old now, but being born at 2 pounds and what we had to go through, I myself almost died when I arrived at the hospital. You know, if I didn't make it when I did, I probably would not have survived another 15 minutes.
Yeah, Guerline, I had something similar, although I did go to full term. I was 1 week late. I almost died in childbirth as well with my son. We almost both died. I was not diagnosed with preeclampsia, but my blood pressure was shooting through the roof. Every time I had a contraction, we lost his heartbeat. and I had to go through an emergency C-section where they had to put me completely out because the epidural they gave me only numbed up half of my body. So they put me completely under, and when I woke up, I was in an empty room and nobody was there. So fellas, I hope you're listening.
Yeah, terrifying. And I think, and I'm not saying the majority of doctors do this, but I think it's just another pregnant woman coming through. It's another procedure. And I think a lot of the, from what I've heard, unless you're wealthy and you have the right health coverage, you don't get treated as you should a lot of the time. So.
Case in point, Serena Williams, she didn't get the help that she needed, and it's in the medical, but it's also in law. We need to protect women, and when we saw that picture of the room of all the men making decisions, and there was maybe one woman or no woman?
No, yeah,
no woman.
Yeah. Thank you, Isabella, for mentioning that. I was just about to say.
It's just appalling. How about you just lay off women and let them decide?
Yeah.
I heard something, I don't know if this is true, but eons ago, before doctoring was a profession, women did a lot of the birthing, the childbirthing, and men were threatened by that. So I don't know if that's true or if that's a myth, but that's why you don't see a lot of midwives anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, in other countries, the majority of birthing are being done by midwives, in all developing countries. So that is still very much a practice, not much here in the United States, but around the world, that is still very much the practice.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to switch us to our final topic, and I want each of the speakers to give me your thoughts. I can give you about maybe 3 minutes apiece on this one. And so I'm going to let you run with it. And then I have to get into like final announcements and conclude the meeting. So the final topic is women in leadership. So I want you to each just give me like 2 to 3 minutes of what it is to be a female leader and somebody who's teaching others, being a mentor, everything that you're doing in the community to help raise up other females and especially young women and women in minority demographics and stuff. What are you doing to not only raise yourself up, but also raise up the next generation?
This is Joan. I'll start. The toll of my life has been education and awareness, continuing to educate yourself. And I remember growing up, I had a lot of female mentors that were in my community. I was a member of the Girl Scouts. There were organizations at schools, student council and things like that. I was a member of the YWCA. So I was around a lot of women that were kind of empowering in the small community that I lived in. And I was very active in my church. And so that extended from high school to college. And then I was a social welfare major in college. I wanted to save the world, save the women and all that. Well, needless to say, it wasn't providing me a lot of financial money. So I went over to the insurance field. But I always have been a volunteer. My whole life I've been volunteering in social and civic organizations. And then I remember my father's motto would be, it was a song, a hymn that says, if I could help somebody along the way. And that's what I try to do with young women that I mentor. And I'm a very optimistic, positive person. I don't want to be around anybody toxic. I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, and I tell my children, my sons, and I tell the young women, don't tell yourself no, let the world tell you no. And even then, keep pursuing, keep going on and on and on. And because sometimes they'll say, well, I know I can't get into college. Well, if you don't apply, how are you going to know? And I said, there's all different types of criteria, all different types of colleges. I said, but you have to learn also to give back to the community. You get more blessings when you give back. So that has been the whole role of my life, is just to reach out and help somebody, because somebody reached down to pick me up. And I have a can-do attitude. I don't like hearing any excuses from anybody. If I don't know the answer, I'll research it and then I'll get back to the person. But we women, we're just very powerful. Men, no reflection on the doctor here or David, but it's the men over the years that have told us we can't do, And a lot of the occupations that I've had, I've been the only woman at first. And I guess I was the guinea pig. I could check off 2 boxes. She's Black and she's a female. So once I succeeded, they said, oh, okay, well, maybe we'll get another female to do that. So I just want to say that with Jenna, I know she's a very powerful woman. Sometimes we have to, as what does John Lewis say? We got to get in good trouble. We got to step out of the stereotypes, and we got to step out of the box in order and to be determined. And as I said, with Chief Justice passing, that even makes me more determined to keep her legacy going. So just want to share that with you. And thank you all.
Thank you so much, Joan. Who wants to go next? Guerline? Jane?
I'll go.
Danette, okay.
Okay, refresh my memory. Question about being a leader. Okay.
It's women in leadership. It's what are you doing to help raise up and inspire the young people around you, especially disenfranchised communities of women, and also just to rise yourself up. Obviously, we know you're running for city council, so that's pretty stellar. But in that vein of what do we do? Because let's be real, y'all. We outnumber men. We outnumber men. We should be in charge, right? So
it's time to try it. That's for sure.
Let's talk about this. Why aren't we in charge? And what are we doing to change this?
Exactly. I don't want to smash the patriarchy so much as just revise it a little bit. Let us take the wheel for a while. I actually haven't been politically involved for very long. It's only been like 4 years, so much less than a lot of you have. I actually just thought back to, when I was probably in my 20s, I was a big sister. So I mentored a young girl who had lost her mother, was living with her grandmother, and they weren't very well off at all, and the grandmother needed help. So I actually mentored her for about a year. So if I look back, I've kind of been that role model all along, even though I didn't really consider it, being a leader or what have you. But I'm a resource for my nieces when I can see them, pre-COVID, and I want this world to be better for them. And it really saddens me that it's we're at this place now in history that it's if we don't fight for this and win these battles, their lives are going to be exponentially worse. As a woman, also regarding the climate crisis, they're going to have to deal with the brunt of these decisions that humans have made over the last 400 years since the Industrial Revolution started. So yeah, it saddens me, but it just makes me want to fight all the harder for their future and everyone's future, all the children.
Thank you. Okay,
we have all these religious right women who agree with the men on this, and they're the ones that we need to work on and try and change their minds, because they are hurting our cause, they are hurting the cause of our children, our grandchildren, and they're just uneducated or something. I don't know, maybe they're under the spell of their husbands.
Mom, is that a virtual background?
Yes, but it actually is the background that is behind me.
I know, that's why I'm tripping out on this because that looks like your backyard.
It is, yes.
It's hilarious. Okay, and by the way, just so you all know, my mom and I are expecting, well, my first grandchild and her first great grandchild, who we expect is going to be born with female parts, but we'll see what gender she identifies with. Okay, who wants to go next?
Well, sometimes you don't go out to be a leader. You just you just become one, and it's a lot of people have just become leaders in the community because of Donald Trump, just pushing them out to go out and register voters, knock on doors, whatever it is that they're doing to. So that's what happened to me. I ended up just volunteering, and I still don't think of myself as a leader, but you know, I got to help out in the community, so might as well tell folks how to engage and remind folks that we have to do the census, and that's what leadership is to me. It's just reminding that folks that, you know, there's a bigger picture, and greatness is achievable if we all just come together. And you know, I just think of my community that's uplifted me, because, you know, as women, we or folks that are you know, marginalized, you start believing all that stuff, and guys in the other side of the spectrum just go for it, and they just do it, and they just don't second guess themselves. And we are just like, well, can we do this? And it's like, we need to stop with that imposter syndrome. We're here and we're not going anywhere. I can't bring children, but the women that do bring children to this world, you know, they are a part of this, and they do have a right to say what goes on, and in their communities too. So I believe that women, it's hard to be in leadership, but especially as a woman, because you second guess yourself so much. So I just encourage women and young leaders to just come out and, you know, don't second guess yourself. You know, people saying you're so young, or you're a woman and you can't do that, or it's just not your time. Don't listen to that. You know when your time is.
Thank you, Isabella. And you know, you raise a really good point. Isabella was attending the women's empowerment meetings with me last year that Ada was hosting at DPOC. And you brought up something which I don't know if I remember the statistic exactly on it, but it was something like men will apply for jobs where they fit 50%. It's something like 50% of the job requirements, whereas women, we won't apply unless we meet somewhere between 80 and 90% of the job requirements, because we have less confidence in ourselves because we've been conditioned to be this way. So I think I have two more. I think Jane and Joan haven't gone yet, or am I getting, or who have I missed?
Guerline.
Guerline and Guerline I've missed? Has everybody else?
Right? So I'm happy to go in either order.
Go ahead, since you're already talking.
Okay. Yeah, so you asked a bit about, first, we could talk about this forever, so I'll cabinet. But in terms of work with youth and kind of the next generation, and so before going to law school, I worked at a shelter for teenage girls, and also was a live-in staff member at a homeless shelter. And I think just like being able to sit with people and show the importance of each person and give people time is so important. And one of my favorite things to do pre-COVID, that'll be one of the first things we do after this is over. My kids, that's one of their favorite talks, is after coronavirus, fill in the blank. And it's a good and hopeful conversation to have. But in February, which was Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, with my domestic violence clinic law students, we went around to, in addition to doing our client work, we went around to 6 of the different high schools in the area. And to be able to show up and to talk to and reach people is really important. And so I think there are ways that we each do that, regardless of what title anybody carries at any moment in time, and that's where the real value is in life. And I get to do that with my law students, of helping them recognize their own value and find their voices. And there's a definition of vocation that I love that has kind of helped me make different career decisions over time. Vocation being the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. And you are lucky in America if you get to like do that match of things. And that's what I hope for everyone, that they find deep purpose and deep joy, and that their work is meaningful in the world. And so that would be what I would really see as leaders who are doing something purposeful and that they love, and hoping that everybody's able to do that. And then in terms of leadership, I hope that people empower and celebrate those around them. And that, to me, as a really great leader, is someone who is able to do that, and leaders who help other people also become leaders. And yeah, and I think just the importance of being able to find, the last point, the importance of being able to find a mentor and sponsors. And so both people who will help you along, but then also people who will be familiar with your work and speak up for you when you're not there, is an important thing that we can do and should do for other people.
Thank you.
We need more people. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
We need more people in law. We need more people in politics. And as Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, when asked how many, when will there be enough people on enough women on the Supreme Court? And she said, when there are 9. We need more on the Supreme Court as well.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And for me,
Progressive women.
yes. For me, really leadership, at least for me personally, is being a servant, right? To be able to serve the community, serve those around you, be able to lead people to freedom and liberation, to positive outcome. And you cannot do that if you are not serving. If you're not a servant, you cannot lead. I think somebody mentioned before, titles does not mean you're a leader. It's what you do that makes you lead. That's what you do that makes other people want to come around you for a cause, for a purpose, for whatever it might be. I believe that to be able to be in community, to be able to be of servant, is the greatest gift that you have and you can share with the world as well. So I do not see myself as a leader per se, but I do believe that I am here to serve and be able to guide others into the right direction. As a mother of a young woman, my job is to raise her to be the best that she can be, to have the strength and the belief and the courage that she can do whatever it is that she puts her mind into, and not to allow any man, woman, person dictate her life. And also for those mothers who have young boys that they are raising, make sure that we instill in them to respect women, because without women, there is no life. We carry them, we birth them, we need to teach them so that we can have a better future.
Thank you. First of all, you guys, y'all, this was a fantastic conversation. You brought up so many intelligent positions on women's issues, and I'm really proud of what we did this evening. I'm in this last 8 minutes of our meeting, I am going to open the floor to anybody who might have announcements, any sort of actions or meetings or things that you want to advertise. We have about 8 minutes left. So you can either raise your hand or just jump in. And this is now open to the men too. I know I shut you down, but you know what? Once in a while, y'all get to get shut down.
That's funny. Well, come phone bank with me. I'll put my website in the chat. So please come phone bank. If you can donate, that would be great. We're trying to get some lawn signs are the next purchase, and we're running out of money because Mike Alvarez already has his lawn signs out, and we can't let him do that. So without me having some out there too. So anything would be appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you. Guerline has her hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to remind people that we continue to fight for women in who are incarcerated, whether they are in immigration prison or otherwise. We work with a lot of domestic violence women, child sexual abuse, who end up in the system while they are defending themselves, but they are the ones being punished for defending themselves. So the Justice for Judith campaign will keep on going. And as I mentioned, she's one of the women who experienced the hysterectomy while she was in detention centers. So we are just asking people to keep pushing, not giving up. Thank you so much.
And on that, if there are any links that you, when I go back and like follow up on the social media on this, if there's any links that you want me to put into the comments, or if you want to find us on our Facebook page and drop your links into the comments there, because this is broadcasting to our Facebook page. But if you put it in the chat, I do get a copy of the whole chat, and I do try and go back and pull all the links out. So if you have any information, you can put it there. Is there anybody else that wanted to give announcements? Dr. Bill, you usually have a pitch for your meeting, but you're muted.
Well, I just want to say thank you. I just sort of a little note in the chat, but you're all such tremendous leaders, and as women leaders, there's some of us men who appreciate that so much and would just be willing to help in any kind of project that you may have going on. And you know, just real quickly, RBG's passing prompted a memory for me. In 1992, we elected 2 women U.S. senators. You know, one was to fill a vacancy, a Republican resigned, and I think the other was Democrat. But Time magazine at the time showed a photograph of 98, because prior to them being elected, there were 98 men and 2 women in the U.S. Senate. So on one page, they had a picture of 98 men with 2 women standing on the Capitol steps. And on the other page, they had 98 women with 2 men standing on the Capitol steps. So I felt 100%, you know, with RBG in her statement that we could not possibly have too many women on the Supreme Court. We could not possibly have too many in the U.S. Senate and, you know, the House for that matter, and every level of government. So thank you all for working toward that vision. Please count on me, you know, and other men who want to help you do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Bill. Anybody else want to jump in with some announcements or last parting thoughts?
We do have a PDA Orange County chapter meeting on Thursday, this coming Thursday. Y'all are welcome to that. And then our ongoing weekly PDA healthcare emergency online town hall meetings every Sunday at 1 o'clock Pacific time. And if you'd like to give a presentation of any kind, you know, as regard, we're especially focused on COVID-19 and Medicare for All as a solution to so many of the problems in COVID-19. But if you'd like to talk about anything regarding healthcare, just message me and I'll put my email in the chat. Thank you, Jenna. It was a terrific meeting. Thank you.
And just for clarification, Dr. Bill, your PDA meeting on Thursday is going to be at 6 p.m.?
Correct. Yeah.
And it will be on the PDA Facebook page, or how will they find the link?
Yes. Well, again, you could contact me for that if you don't already get our email notices. If you go to pdamerica.org and click on join, put in your information, then you'll get all of our notices, local and national. But otherwise, we do have a Facebook page, the Progressive Democrats America Orange County, that you can get the information there for the meeting.
Great, thank you. Okay, we got 2 minutes left. If you have something that you want to say to the group, this is your last chance to do it.
Oh, Dave here. I just wanted to, Ida didn't say anything about it, but uh, this bill that she's pushing, uh, AB 3416, and there's another one, 270 something. Anyway, this is going to be presented, everything that Ida said tonight is going to be presented for action at the DPOC tomorrow night.
Okay, that sounds, and just so for those of you who might be watching us on Facebook, Dr. Sonneborn, are you the chair of the Legislative Standing Committee for Democratic Party of Orange County?
Right now, I'm the co-chair. I've been chair and co-chair for longer than anybody wants to remember. So, yes, we kind of missed the boat about having a first and last support for federal legislation. We missed it. But that's a sour note. I don't want to be sour. So let's just keep tuned to Ada, I guess, is what we need to. I know she made a powerful pitch tonight, and I would just ask everybody to keep a very close attention to the things. She's such a powerful voice. So I just hope that people here will continue to engage with her and try to help us out as much as they can.
Thank you so much for that. And I just want to, I really want to thank all of you who attended with us this evening, especially our speakers. It was a really valuable and heartfelt conversation, and we discussed some really important issues. And I think you all did an amazing job. So I am at this point, it's 6 p.m. I like to be timely. So I'm going to conclude the meeting at this point unless there's any serious objections to me doing that.
Thank you so much for putting this together, Jenna. It was really great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I applaud you.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. And that's it. That's all, folks. Thanks so much.
Stay safe. Wear your mask.
Good night. Okay.